News 4's Gabe Pressman introduces us to a pair of lawyers who arrived in the same place by going down very different paths. Gabe?
Yes, Chuck. One was the consummate insider directing a government commission and then serving as a district attorney. The other, an outsider defending some of the most controversial people in the America of the 1960s. Their lives have changed dramatically since then.
I think there are sufficient grounds on the records to appeal.
They wrote the screenplay. But you, ladies and gentlemen, will write the final act.
And you can permit that? Putting on a show.
Defendants, everybody, we're all here.
A night of wild celebration in May 1971. A bushy-haired young lawyer joins his clients amidst champagne and laughter. They hail their acquittal on bombing and conspiracy charges. A great victory for the group that won notoriety as the Black Panther 21.
They try to frame them? No question about it.
Everybody had them doomed, and the jurors had an insight into what was really going on. I guess one commentator said that the jurors found that the police were worse than the Panthers.
You solemnly swear?
That same year, another dark-haired young lawyer wins fame as a crusader against police corruption. He is chief counsel to the Knapp Commission, which stuns New York with revelations of widespread corruption in the police department. The chief whistleblower to testify is a man who will later be immortalized by Hollywood, Officer Frank Serpico.
The commissioner would drag me before a grand jury, and by the time that it was over, I may be found floating in the river.
Mike Armstrong, attracted to the bar after his college days at Yale and a stint in the Air Force.
Why did you become a lawyer?
I think I was impressed as a young person with some of the cornier, more glamorous elements of being a lawyer, being in court.
Jerry Lefcourt, drawn to criminal defense work by the civil rights movement and a friendship with a zany activist, Abbie Hoffman, that began in 1968.
The Yippies believe in the violation of every law in the books, including the law of gravity.
And he called me, and he said that he had a doctor and a dentist, but what he really needed, since he had 3 pending criminal cases, was a lawyer.
Right,
I tended bar on weekends.
Tended bar? You certainly didn't get a handsome fee from Abbie Hoffman.
As a matter of fact, I never got a fee from Abbie Hoffman.
The photographs on Lefcourt's walls are painful evidence of the 6 times he crossed the finish line of the New York Marathon, and show him also alongside the radical Hoffman. The pictures in Armstrong's office include diplomas in Latin from Yale University and Harvard Law School, posing with politicians such as former Governor Hugh Carey, and the police officers and prosecutors who became his staff during his year as Queens District Attorney. The football on Armstrong's desk reminds him that when he played quarterback at Yale, he took abuse for not finding pass receivers. But when he switched to offensive end, he learned to curse the quarterback for not throwing the ball to him. It's Armstrong's way of describing the big change from prosecutor to defense attorney.
There's a great danger as a prosecutor in getting to believe in your white hat too much. And you think that that white hat turns everything you do into the actions of the Lone Ranger, when in fact you can be, your arrogance can carry you into doing things that you shouldn't do.
Like Armstrong, Lefcourt has seen some big changes in his client list as government prosecutors turned away from political dissidents and eventually zeroed in on white-collar crime. Real estate magnate Harry Helmsley would occupy the media limelight. Abbie Hoffman once did when Lefcourt defended him in a tax evasion case.
How about the criticism that could be voiced by some of the folks who always identified you with the penniless defendant that you've sold out to the guys with big bucks?
Well, I think that people who know me know that I feel the same way about lots of things. It's true, I'm a lot more comfortable than I was when I was tending bar on weekends to support my law practice. But I don't think that's bad.
Like Lefcourt, Armstrong would take on some high-profile clients as well. One was a civil suit filed against Klaus von Bülow by the son and daughter of his wealthy, comatose wife.
He stood to gain $14 million by killing his wife.
A chain of events starting with the attempted suicide of Queens Borough President Donald Maness would link these two attorneys in 1986. The borough president's self-inflicted wounds would help inspire an inquiry into corruption scandals that brought the paths of Lefcourt and Armstrong together. Armstrong would become the borough president's lawyer during the few months Maness lived under the intense scrutiny of press and prosecutors as a key player in alleged bribery schemes.
He was being vilified publicly, and my chief task at the time, as I saw it, was to try and see to it that when the time came for him to be tried, that he would have a fair trial. The day that he committed suicide, he was in my office for that day. We were working on things, and I called his family and said that in my judgment, he should go into a hospital right away.
Unlike Armstrong's client, Lefcourt's would get his day in court. He represented Marvin Kaplan, a businessman who'd be convicted alongside Stanley Friedman in the municipal corruption trial relocated to a federal courthouse in New Haven.
You lost that case. Would you have done anything differently?
I think that the problem in that case was that we were chased from New York. It was a shame that it couldn't have been tried in New York. And maybe if we didn't have all of that press leak and all that bad publicity and we could have tried it in New York, the result could have been different.
Both lawyers would face the U.S. Attorney's Office again when they represented the co-defendants of Michael Milken in a case involving insider trading on Wall Street. That experience has contributed to making both men highly critical of prosecutors.
The government comes to an individual like in the Wall Street cases and they say, unless you help us, which means tell us what we want to hear, we're going to indict you for RICO. You'll face 40 years in jail. We'll take every penny and every asset you have unless you help us. And if you help us, you go free. You keep every penny. It's like a gangster offer you can't refuse.
One prosecutor reportedly said that when a jury comes in with a guilty verdict, it's like a great sexual exhilaration.
I think he's sick.
Two attorneys who came of age in the turbulent 60s who followed such different paths to get to the same line of work. Pat, Chuck.
Thank you, Gabe.
And right now, we're going to go back live to Tony Guida, who's at the Bensonhurst murder trials with news that there is a verdict in one of those cases. Tony.
Pat, that